The Sandlot was supposed to be a sweet childhood story about friendship. But life off-screen was nothing like the game they played on it. Fame, heartbreak, tragedy, and shocking turns changed their lives forever. What really happened to the cast you thought you knew? You won't believe what came to them. Art LaFleur as Babe Ruth. Remember that dream sequence? Benny meets Babe Ruth, and the great Bambino delivers the line that defined the Sandlot. Heroes get remembered, but legends never die. It wasn't just dialogue, it was Art LaFleur giving every kid in the audience goosebumps. He made Ruth feel both larger than life and strangely comforting, like a father figure from another era. But here's the truth. Art LaFleur's real life was far less glamorous. He wasn't the star who got handed roles on a silver platter. He spent decades grinding it out as a character actor, bouncing between auditions, guest spots, and side jobs. Hollywood never crowned him a leading man. He was the guy you recognized but couldn't always name. That kind of invisibility eats at an actor's pride. He finally found steady work in films like Field of Dreams, 1989, where he played the infamous Black Sox ballplayer Chick Gandil, and Disney's Man of the House, 1995. Later, he became known to kids as the bumbling tooth fairy in the Santa Claus sequels. But the reality was brutal. No matter how many movies he stacked, LaFleur lived under the pressure of being Hollywood's reliable backup, never its superstar. And then, as if that wasn't enough, came Parkinson's disease. By the early 2000s, he was in a private war with his own body. The disease stole his voice, slowed his movement, and forced him to walk away from acting in 2017. For someone who had spent his life on screen and stage, losing that identity was crushing. Art LaFleur played Babe Ruth in The Sandlot, 1993, when he was 50 years old. He died in 2021 at 78 after a decade-long fight with Parkinson's, leaving behind a 40-year career, a loving marriage of 4 decades, and a net worth of about $5 million. Karen Allen as Mrs. Smalls. She wasn't the loudest character in The Sandlot, but Mrs. Smalls mattered. She was the warmth and encouragement Scotty needed to step onto the field. Karen Allen gave her that motherly touch, a softness that balanced the film's wild energy. Her career, however, was far from soft. After her explosive breakthrough as Marion Ravenwood in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Allen faced the kind of pressure few actresses could carry. She was suddenly Hollywood's new it girl, and studios wanted her in everything. That spotlight, though, came with typecasting and constant comparisons to her earlier triumphs. She had shining moments in Starman, 1984, and Scrooged, 1988, but when offers slowed down in the 1990s, Allen was forced to step back. Balancing single motherhood after her 1998 divorce made the struggle heavier, and she quietly left the industry for years to focus on raising her son and running a textile business. Stage work and independent films brought her peace, but never the fame she once tasted. Returning to Indiana Jones in 2008 and again in 2023 gave her career new life, though the pressure of living up to her iconic past never really disappeared. Karen Allen played Mrs. Smalls in The Sandlot, 1993, when she was 42 years old. In 2025, she is 74, still acting selectively while running her fiber art store in Massachusetts, with a net worth of about $2 million. James Earl Jones as Mr. Myrtle. You probably remember Mr. Myrtle, the blind former ball player who owned the beast in The Sandlot. He looked intimidating, but when the kids finally met him, they found wisdom, kindness, and a man who understood loss. Jones gave the role a depth that hit harder than any home run. But James Earl Jones's career wasn't all glory. For years, he battled a stutter so severe he once refused to speak in class. Even after becoming an actor, the fear of rejection haunted him. Hollywood didn't always know what to do with a deep-voiced black man, and it took decades of theater work before he was finally recognized as a force. He carried enormous pressure in roles like Dr. Strangelove, 1964, and the voice of Darth Vader in Star Wars, while simultaneously struggling with type 2 diabetes behind the scenes. That illness followed him for years, draining his health and limiting the projects he could accept. Still, his triumphs were undeniable. His voice as Mufasa in The Lion King became a global symbol of strength. But those successes often came with the heavy shadow of his private battles, including the devastating loss of his wife Cecilia Hart in 2016. James Earl Jones played Mr. Myrtle in The Sandlot, 1993, when he was 62 years old. He passed away in 2024 at 93, leaving behind a $40 million net worth after more than 6 decades of unforgettable work. Denis Leary as Bill. Bill, the gruff stepdad in The Sandlot, wasn't exactly Father of the Year. He barked instructions, struggled to connect, and often seemed more comfortable with a baseball glove than with emotions. But that stiffness? Denis Leary made it believable, because he's always thrived on playing men with rough edges. What most people don't know is how much of Leary's career was fueled by anger, real, raw, exhausting anger. His breakout stand-up special No Cure for Cancer, 1993, wasn't just comedy. It was him unloading years of frustration and cynicism at a world he felt didn't take him seriously. Audiences laughed, but behind the jokes was a man burning himself out. Movies like Judgment Night, 1993, and Wag the Dog, 1997, gave him visibility, but critics often dismissed him as too abrasive. Even when he found huge success as the voice of Diego in Ice Age or as Captain Stacy in The Amazing Spider-Man, he still battled that old label: difficult, angry, unlikable. Hollywood has a way of punishing people who don't play nice. His biggest win, and his heaviest burden, was Rescue Me, 2004 to 2011. He didn't just star in it, he co-created it, wrote it, produced it. The show earned Emmy nominations and respect, but it came at a price. The long hours, the pressure, and his own battles with chain smoking and temper nearly broke him. Friends say he was living the chaos of his character even off set. Denis Leary played Bill in The Sandlot, 1993, when he was 36 years old. In 2025, at 68, he's still working in comedy and television, carrying the scars of a tough career, but holding on to a $30 million net worth built from decades of refusing to soften who he is. Tom Guiry as Scotty Smalls. Everyone remembers Scotty Smalls, the shy, wide-eyed kid who moved to a new town and didn't even know how to throw a baseball. His story of finding friendship and belonging gave The Sandlot its heart, and Tom Guiry captured that innocence in a way that felt timeless. But real life after The Sandlot wasn't the same fairy tale. Guiry went on to serious projects like Black Hawk Down, 2001, and Mystic River, 2003, but Hollywood never embraced him as a star. Instead, he bounced between small roles, auditions that went nowhere, and stretches where acting didn't pay the bills. The pressure took its toll. In 2013, a disturbing incident at an airport made headlines when he was arrested after a drunken altercation with police. It was the first public glimpse into struggles with alcohol and stress that he couldn't seem to escape. By 2024, things had spiraled further. He was arrested again for throwing a 35-pound dumbbell through a neighbor's Jeep and confronting another man with a knife. Fans who still thought of him as the innocent Smalls were stunned to see how far he had fallen. Behind the scandals was someone trying desperately to survive. To keep food on the table for his wife and kids, Guiry took night shifts stocking shelves at a Whole Foods in South Carolina. Friends described him as humble, soft-spoken, and worn down by years of battling both financial instability and his own demons. It was a sobering reminder that child stardom doesn't always guarantee a safe adulthood. Tom Guiry played Scotty Smalls in The Sandlot, 1993, when he was 12 years old. In 2025, at 44, he lives a modest life in South Carolina, his career overshadowed by legal troubles, with an estimated net worth of just $100,000. Pablo Vitar as adult Benny Rodriguez. The end of The Sandlot gave us one of the most satisfying payoffs in movie history. Benny the Jet Rodriguez, all grown up, stealing home in Dodger Stadium. That older Benny was played by Pablo Vitar, the real-life older brother of Mike Vitar. His cameo was short, but unforgettable, cementing the legend of the Jet. Off-screen, Pablo's life looked just as promising. In 1996, he joined the Los Angeles Police Department, a job that gave him stability, respect, and a future he could be proud of. For years, he balanced work with family life, building a home with his wife Gail and their children. But in 2004, at just 38 years old, his world collapsed. Doctors diagnosed him with colon cancer. The disease advanced aggressively, robbing him of strength while he was still raising young kids. Unlike his famous brother, Pablo wasn't backed by Hollywood wealth. He faced the illness while continuing to work as a police officer. Friends and family say he fought with incredible courage, determined to stay present for his children even as his health declined. But by 2008, the battle was over. Pablo passed away at just 41, leaving behind a devastated family and a career cut far too short. Pablo Vitar played adult Benny Rodriguez in The Sandlot, 1993, when he was 27 years old. He died in 2008 at only 41, a beloved husband, father, and police officer with an estimated net worth of $500,000. Mike Vitar as Benny the Jet Rodriguez. Benny the Jet wasn't just the leader of The Sandlot. He was the dream every kid wanted to follow. Fast, fearless, and the glue that held the team together, Benny's heart carried the movie. Mike Vitar made him unforgettable, the kind of hero that stuck in childhood memories for decades. But real life wasn't nearly as heroic. Vitar rode that early fame into the Mighty Ducks sequels, playing speedy skater Luis Mendoza. Fans thought he was on track for a long Hollywood career. Instead, he walked away from acting in 1997, choosing a life of service as a firefighter. On the surface, it looked like the perfect second chapter. Movie hero turned real-life hero. Behind that image, though, came scandal. On Halloween night in 2015, Vitar and fellow firefighters attacked a man they suspected of handing out drugs to kids. The victim nearly died, his kidneys failing, and Vitar found himself charged with assault. The story shattered the Benny the Jet legend for many fans who had idolized him. The fallout was brutal. Vitar was suspended from the fire department, sentenced to probation, community labor, and eventually ordered to pay millions in civil damages. By 2019, more than $7 million had been awarded to the victim, money that would haunt his finances for years. Mike Vitar played Benny the Jet Rodriguez in The Sandlot, 1993, when he was 15 years old. In 2025, at 47, he still works as a firefighter in Los Angeles, but his reputation never fully recovered, and his net worth is estimated at only $300,000. Marty York as Alan Yeah Yeah McLennan. Alan Yeah Yeah McLennan was the motormouth of The Sandlot, a kid who couldn't stop talking, always blurting out one-liners before anyone else had a chance. Marty York brought that manic energy to life, making Yeah Yeah one of the funniest and most quotable members of the crew. York's post-Sandlot career, however, was rocky. He dabbled in acting, but roles dried up fast. Unlike his co-stars, he couldn't land steady Hollywood work, and the struggle to transition from child star to adult actor left him adrift. He reinvented himself as a fitness coach, carving out a modest life away from the cameras. Then came the tragedy no one saw coming. In 2023, his mother, Deanna Esmail, was brutally murdered by her boyfriend. The news shocked not just York's fans, but also his community. His mother was a retired sheriff's deputy, respected and loved. For Marty, it was devastating. He called her his hero in public tributes, but the grief was raw and unbearable. Despite the heartbreak, York has avoided the scandals that plagued some of his castmates. Instead, he's leaned on fitness and Sandlot fan events, where he continues to meet fans who still remember him as the fast-talking kid from 1993. Behind the smiles, though, is a man carrying the weight of loss. Marty York played Alan "Yeah Yeah" McLennan in The Sandlot, 1993, when he was 13 years old. In 2025, at 45, he works as a personal trainer and public speaker, honoring his mother's memory with an estimated net worth of $500,000. Chauncey Leopardi as Michael Squints Palladorus. Who could ever forget Squints? The sly little kid with oversized glasses who pulled off the most legendary move of The Sandlot, pretending to drown just so he could sneak a kiss from lifeguard Wendy Peppercorn, was mischievous, reckless, and unforgettable. Chauncey Leopardi made that scene a piece of 90s pop culture history. But child stardom didn't come without its price. After The Sandlot, Chauncey tried to shake the Squints label with roles in Freaks and Geeks and Gilmore Girls. Yet Hollywood was unforgiving. He was typecast as the geek, the outsider, the kid who never grew up. The pressure of stalled opportunities left him frustrated and searching for something more stable. His personal life reflected the turbulence, too. A divorce from his first wife, Stephanie Sells, left him emotionally drained while trying to co-parent their daughter, Paige. For a while, he struggled to balance career failures with personal heartbreak, a reality far removed from the cheeky, confident Squints fans remembered. In time, he rebuilt. Finding love again with Ilona V., Leopardi became a devoted family man with 2 more children, Shia and Chance. He stepped away from Hollywood's chaos to focus on business and family, proving he could create stability where the industry hadn't given him any. Chauncey Leopardi played Michael Squints Palladorus in The Sandlot, 1993, when he was 12 years old. In 2025, at 44, he runs his own business, lives a quiet family life, and has an estimated net worth of $3 million. Patrick Renna as Hamilton Ham Porter. If The Sandlot had a voice, it was Ham Porter. Loud, sarcastic, and hilariously overconfident, he gave us the immortal line, "You're killing me, Smalls." Patrick Renna's performance made Ham the comic heartbeat of the movie, and that one line turned into a lifelong catchphrase. But comedy didn't always mean life was easy. Renna scored parts in films like The Big Green and TV shows like Boston Legal, but his career never reached blockbuster heights. Hollywood had a way of boxing him in, and Renna often found himself stuck in funny sidekick roles, fighting to be taken seriously. Behind the scenes, he wrestled with uncertainty, auditions that didn't pan out, projects that fell apart, and the gnawing pressure of being known for one role above all others. That kind of fame is bittersweet. Everyone remembers you, but only for one thing. Still, Renna leaned into it. He built a second life as a producer with projects like Bad Roomies, kept acting in smaller roles, and embraced the nostalgia by engaging with fans online. In his personal life, he found happiness with his wife Jasmine, raising their 3 kids while sharing glimpses of family joy on social media. Patrick Renna played Hamilton Ham Porter in The Sandlot, 1993, when he was 14 years old. In 2025, at 46, he continues acting and producing while enjoying family life, with a net worth of about $1.5 million. Brandon Quintin Adams as Kenny DeNunez. Kenny DeNunez wasn't just another kid on the block, he was the ace, the one with the fireball pitch that gave the Sandlot crew its edge. Brandon Quintin Adams slipped into the role so naturally, with a confidence and spark that made him unforgettable on screen. What most people don't realize is that by the time he filmed The Sandlot, Brandon was already a seasoned performer. He had danced alongside Michael Jackson in Moonwalker, even portraying young Michael in the iconic Batter sequence, and just a couple years later, he terrified audiences in Wes Craven's The People Under the Stairs. Hollywood seemed ready to crown him as one of its next big stars. But life rarely plays fair. In 2002, Brandon was sitting in a car with his closest friend, actor Merlin Santana, when Santana was ambushed and murdered in cold blood. The loss was devastating. To witness such a senseless act left Brandon broken, distrustful of the world, and questioning whether he could ever stay in an industry so ruthless and unforgiving. He walked away from acting for a long stretch, trying to heal through music. Rebranding himself as B. Lee, he poured his pain into lyrics and beats, chasing some form of peace that fame had never given him. But despite his passion, the success he once touched as an actor never returned. His journey became less about chasing the spotlight and more about finding stability after trauma. Brandon Quinton Adams played Kenny DeNunez in The Sandlot, 1993, when he was just 14 years old. In 2025, at age 46, he continues to create music and pursue small independent projects. His estimated net worth is $300,000, a reminder of a career that once soared only to be shadowed by tragedy and the fight to keep moving forward. Marley Shelton as Wendy Peppercorn. Every group of kids has their crush, and for the Sandlot boys, it was Wendy Peppercorn, the lifeguard who drove Squints to pull off his infamous poolside stunt. Marley Shelton gave Wendy the perfect mix of beauty and confidence, turning a small role into one of the film's most iconic images. But Shelton's career wasn't the smooth ride fans might think. After The Sandlot, she was cast in big films like Pleasantville and Never Been Kissed. Yet the industry often boxed her in as the pretty blonde, a label that frustrated her as she tried to prove she could do more than just play the love interest. The early 2000s were especially tough. Movies like Sugar and Spice and Valentine earned her visibility but drew mixed reviews, and some critics dismissed her as style over substance. She pushed back with roles in Grindhouse and Sin City, where she finally showed Hollywood she had range, but the fight for respect was constant. Television gave her stability, though not without disappointment. Shows like 11th Hour and Rise were canceled quickly, leaving her in a cycle of near breakthroughs and sudden collapses. She kept going, balancing acting with raising her two daughters with producer Beau Flynn. Marley Shelton played Wendy Peppercorn in The Sandlot, 1993, when she was 19 years old. In 2025, at 51, she continues acting in film and TV, including 1923 and Scream 5, with a net worth of about $6 million. Grant Gelt as Bertram Grover Weeks. Bertram Grover Weeks was the wisecracking kid in The Sandlot, the one who thought chewing tobacco before a carnival ride was a good idea. Fans loved his offbeat humor, and Grant Gelt made him one of the most memorable misfits in the lineup. But unlike some of his castmates who battled public scandals, Gelt's struggles were quieter. Hollywood didn't have many roles waiting for him after The Sandlot. His early work in Avalon and Northern Exposure showed promise, but the industry slowly pushed him to the sidelines. For a child actor, fading into obscurity can be its own painful kind of rejection. Rather than chasing the fame that slipped away, Gelt turned to business. He reinvented himself in Nashville, rising in the music and entertainment world as a manager and strategist. That path wasn't easy either. He had to prove himself from scratch in a new industry, fighting for credibility after being labeled a former child star. Through persistence, he built a solid career. As CEO of Mass and CSO of Waxify, and a manager for the Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, he carved out a life of influence behind the scenes. Away from the spotlight, he co-founded the Play Forever Foundation and built a reputation as a steady professional in a world where many of his peers crashed. Grant Gelt played Bertram Grover Weeks in The Sandlot, 1993, when he was 13 years old. In 2025, at 45, he lives in Nashville with his wife Melissa, works in entertainment business leadership, and has an estimated net worth of $1 million. Victor DiMattia as Timmy Timmons. Timmy Timmons was the steady older brother in The Sandlot, the one who always looked out for his little brother Tommy while keeping the group grounded. Victor DiMattia gave him that quiet, responsible energy, standing out in a film full of big personalities. Behind the screen, DiMattia had already been acting since age 5. He appeared in Dennis the Menace and Cool as Ice, and fans thought he might have a long career in Hollywood. But the truth is, the industry wore him down. By the time he was a teenager, roles became scarce, and the stress of auditions and rejection pushed him to step back. That shift wasn't easy. Walking away from a childhood career leaves scars, especially when the thing that once defined you suddenly disappears. DiMattia wrestled with identity, wondering what his place was outside of acting. He found a new passion behind the camera, working as a director and producer on independent films. His personal life had its own setbacks. His marriage to Whitney DiMattia ended in 2023, and he kept his life private as he poured himself into creative projects. Even so, the journey from child star to indie filmmaker showed resilience, proving he could write his own second chapter without Hollywood's approval. Victor DiMattia played Timmy Timmons in The Sandlot, 1993, when he was 13 years old. In 2025, at 45, he works as a director and producer, living quietly with an estimated net worth of $400,000. Shane Obedzinski as Tommy Repeat Timmons. If you grew up watching The Sandlot, you probably remember the kid who repeated everything his brother said. That was Tommy Repeat Timmons, and Shane Obedzinski brought him to life in a way that made audiences laugh every single time. He didn't need a lot of lines to become a fan favorite. His innocent mimicry was enough to stick in everyone's memory. But for Shane, the film was less the start of a long Hollywood career and more like the end of one. He had already appeared in My Girl and Matinee, yet by the mid-1990s he quietly stepped away from acting. The pressure of auditions, the instability of roles, and the harsh reality of child stardom convinced him that Hollywood wasn't where he wanted to grow up. That decision came with its own struggles. Walking away meant giving up the fame that many of his co-stars continued to chase. Instead of red carpets, Shane faced the grind of everyday life, working jobs far away from cameras, often hearing fans ask, "Hey, weren't you that kid from The Sandlot?" Those questions were bittersweet reminders of a past that felt both lucky and unfinished. Eventually, he found peace in carving out a different path. In Florida, he built a new identity as a restaurant owner, running the Times Square Pizza Company. It was a far cry from movie sets, but it gave him control, stability, and a community. For Shane, serving food to loyal customers became more meaningful than chasing auditions that never called back. Shane Obedzinski played Tommy Repeat Timmons in The Sandlot, 1993, when he was 11 years old. In 2025, at 43, he lives in Florida, manages his pizza business full-time, and has an estimated net worth of $300,000. From childhood dreams to unexpected tragedies, the cast of The Sandlot lived lives no one could have predicted. Which story shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more untold Hollywood journeys.